video games.
They're a thing.
Well, that's our show. The 3DS. A great console of its time.
Mm-hmm.
At certain points of its lifespan, probably the best console on the market.
Yeah, I played it a whole lot for a good while there.
The 3DS is basically donezo.
It's dead.
But that doesn't mean all of the games that have come out for it have not come out for it, except for now. Now they've all come out for it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last stalwarts of the 3DS has finally made its appearance. Well, by finally, I mean like a month ago by this point.
We've been busy.
We've had a lot of things we've had to get to before we could talk about this, so... but yes,
they were more fun.
They were a little bit more important, let's say.
Yes.
The sequel to Persona Q,
Mm-hmm.
Shadows of the Labyrinth?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Shadow of the Labyrinth, excuse me. No plural. Persona Q2, New Cinema Labyrinth, has hit the market, and we are here to tell you about that there video game where everyone is here. It's like Smash Brothers, but
this is a Smash.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Season Language Checkup OVA. It's episode 133. I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Owl and Ladium.
Hello.
This is a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. And we are talking to you about, obviously, Persona Q2. It's like the Peggle 2 introduction from E3.
That was delightful.
But it's Persona Q2.
Yeah, not as delightful.
Yikes.
Oof. I'm not savage or anything about this game.
No. You may have already seen some of my thoughts and opinions about this here video game if you've read my review on the Crunchyroll.
Jared wrote a good review, y'all.
That is basically my encompassing thoughts about it. But yeah, we are here to give our thoughts and opinions, as you know, we've discussed a lot of these dang Persona games over the years.
And like both of us have a Persona game at like our top 10 games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have played every Persona game.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're very
most
qualified. Yeah, you've played most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you are also very qualified for this.
Yay!
Let's talk about Persona Q2. We'll give a little bit about our general thoughts. We'll dig into some spoilers here and there, of course, but we'll warn you before we do that because this still is a relatively new game and everything.
And can take a while if you're not powering through it. So
yeah. Back when Persona Q came out, which was like what, 2014. It was a fresh concept. Seeing the Persona stylings, the characters, and the storytelling mixed in with the Etrian Odyssey gameplay of their style of RPG and like all the map making stuff. It was an interesting concept that I think at times worked, and there was definitely some problems with it. But otherwise, you know, it's not necessarily the worst of the spin-off games that have come out. Even then it wasn't. I think like now it's kind of more solidified as spot as definitely not being the worst.
yeah.
But it was one of those games where, like, you know, considering it's a non-canon entry and everything, and just the ways that they had to bring the Persona 3 and Persona 4 cast together to do that, like, it definitely seemed like something that you wouldn't think they would do a spin or a sequel to. But here we are. They've made a sequel to it that in no way, shape, or form references the original.
Nope, because it was not canon, and this is not canon
either. This is also not canon, so it's very strange and peculiar in that way. I remember back, you know, when this initially got announced and everything, I met it with very tepid feelings. I was just like, okay, sure, I guess you would make a sequel to that, but in all honesty, I wasn't that interested.
Yeah, when they first announced it, I was like, no, I'm good. I don't need that.
And then, like,
especially because of our feelings on 5.
Yes, that was kind of the main thing. Because, of course, like, this was going to be the thing where, you know, 5 is going to be the leader of it because it is the new thing. And, you know, that makes sense, like, obviously. So I was just like, I liked PQ, the original one. I don't really necessarily need another one of those. until they showed off the first like actual like trailer for it. And it was just like, mostly like what you'd expect. There's a lot of 5 influences. You see the cast of 3 and 4 show up. And then they hit you with like the end, like big stinger of, oh, by the way, the MC from P3P is also in this game. And I was like,
I remember both of us were like, that means we have to buy this.
yep.
Both of us were like that. Because like, and like, okay, yeah, I mean, it exists again. Cool, I guess. Like, they're gonna butcher Akihiko as they do, and like, he's gonna butcher Chie. I don't really need any of that again. Then like, it closes out with her. I was like, you know how to get me back in, Atlas.
In all honesty, it was incredibly surprising considering how much they have ignored her. Through the last 10 years. So like, for them to be like, hey, by the way, she's in this is like, wow.
It was wild and unexpected.
So that was the big hook. And then it was like, okay, like, what are they going to do to like make this different than PQ1? And how do they do this with like 3 different casts? Like, is this going to be the same style of PQ1 where, you play as either the P3 or the P4 side, and this time it would just be split between 3 different casts, or what? And
then
the answer is,
like, do they duplicate 3 but they don't?
Right.
Yeah.
The answer is though is no. They just basically kind of streamline everything, which I think works for the best.
It does.
In all honesty, because like having like 3 different versions of the same game would not be great. I think
nope. It would be a little chaotic.
And I don't think there's enough like story. There would not be enough story differentiating things to happen.
Yeah.
To make it worthwhile. So I think that was actually a smart decision on their part to kind of just more or less streamline everything in. Obviously, the P5 cast is more of like the main cast that you see and play as. Like, obviously, you play as Joker as the main character, so it is kind of focused in that direction. But it works so much better than just being like, well, you could have this cast or this cast or this cast, and it's basically the same story throughout.
That said, I did remove Joker from my party as soon as I like had the people that I wanted.
I didn't, but mostly it's because like he was just already leveled up enough that like he was just there to begin with, so like whatever. He's just gonna be. I will use him as he has these skills that I need. All right, you're just a body up there. You're up front. You may die. It's fine.
Yeah, I got rid of him. I was like, nope, you're out. Bye, buddy. Time to get benched. Why are you kicking me?
It's because you were smushing him.
No, that's a different kitty. This is the smush face cat. He's kicking.
The smush face cat.
He is. He's a smoosh. He's a smoosh.
He is.
He's a good smoosh.
I think coming into this, one of the problems that this game actually does have is the fact that it has 3 full game casts in it, and it's just too many characters.
It is way too many characters.
It comes down to the fact that you have so many different characters that you have and there's a lot of different quests out there that are like, I guess this isn't actually the fact, but for me, I thought this was the fact. Where it's like, oh, you need this character and this character in your party to do this specific quest, and they're going to be like maybe 15, 20, 30 levels below you when you're doing this quest, so it's going to be really hard. Until Al's like, you don't have to do that. What are you doing?
Yeah, there's only a few of them that you actually have in your party, but...
And I was like, oh, I've just been making this harder on myself than I needed to be. But it feels like there's just too many, because the fact is, there are 25, I think is what I counted, playable characters in this, and they all have their own different skills and abilities and everything, and that gives you a lot of different options in terms of how you want to play the game. But then that means as well, you're going to pick a party of 5. I think that's a TV show, but you're going to pick that party, and then you're just going to stick with that party and not really go around experimenting with well, what if I put this character in or this character in and see how these things mash up and everything. It feels, you can't really do this without having everyone there. I mean, maybe you could by just cutting one of the casts, but at the same time, it's a lot.
I think if they had cut somebody, it would have some group off.
Yeah.
If you cut 3, then you alienate that fan base. And also it wouldn't make sense to have them see, but not 3 cast. And then if you cut 4, then you alienate that group, and then they're not gonna cut 5 because 5 is their bread and butter right now. So like,
Yeah, exactly.
who do you cut without upsetting anybody?
It's one of those where you're if you do if you don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not envious of the position they were in, so or the decision they had to make either. So that is the thing. But there are some fun things that you get to have with like all these different characters interacting and everything. Like they have a new system that has you have specific attacks that happen because of quests you do, where certain characters will team up together and do like a cool little animation attack based on like the way their characters are and whatnot. So like Yukiko and Yusuke have like a really fun attack. The various protagonists have their own special attack that they get to do. Femsi has her own attack that she does with like the rest of C's. And basically it's that kind of thing. And those are really fun. Like I really enjoyed those anytime they popped up
Although
in game.
we need to talk about the fact that like Joker and P3 protagonists, they have theirs where like Joker has his gun to his head. I'm like,
He does.
that doesn't work.
No. Do not do that.
Does not quite work like that, buddy. So yeah, he's just like off himself by hanging out with this dude, I guess.
I mean, in that game, you can make Joker into the biggest imaginable. So like,
you
it makes sense.
Can.
It totally makes sense. Yeah.
And I kind of did.
Same.
But then you have some that are like really, really irritating. Like, you have, for some reason, they decided that like Yusuke's like defining character trait was that he was hungry.
Yeah.
And so like they have one where it's like Akihiko and Yusuke and Shinji, and Yusuke's like, I'm gonna fight them. Oh no, I am hungry. What do I do? And Shinji's like, here, have a rice ball / jelly donut. And Akihiko's like, I have protein. And then they all just drink a protein and like go and fight. I'm like, what is happening right now? So some of them are dumb.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are, like, the problems that PQ originally had where certain characters are written very poorly and just become caricatures of themselves and of their character arcs and everything is very emblematic in this game as well. So, like you said, Akihiko is very just like, I love protein, and that's all my character is. Chie kind of gets boiled down to, I love meat, that's all my character is. Yusuke gets that same problem where she's like, I'm hungry.
And it's like, oh.
Thanks.
Right, like for one, this is like really sad because we're like letting this child actually go hungry because of his art, but also like that dude had a really great arc in 5 and one of the few that actually had a decent arc, and then they're like, but he's just hungry, y'all.
But I mean, granted, they do the same thing with other characters, like we said, so it is not the biggest surprise.
Yeah, it's not just him
at all. But like, there are good like just character moments in general throughout this. Like, despite the misgivings that they do give certain characters, and when we get into spoilers, we'll talk about one character in specific that they actually write way better than they do in their original game, which is incredibly surprising given the way that the writing in this game tends to go. So
yeah. And there's somebody else I was gonna say was like dumbed down, but I don't remember who I was gonna say at this point.
But I think like the main problem with that is not just necessarily that they just make them caricatures, is that they are bringing all these characters together when they are incomplete.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest problems that this game and the previous game had, is that they bring all these characters together when it's about like what, halfway to two-thirds of the way through their respective games, and they are still going through their character arcs and everything. So they are, not necessarily the same characters they are by the time they finish the game. So they are not, completed characters in that sense. But at the same time, it's just like they go with like the easiest thing that they can do in terms of writing these characters and don't necessarily put that much more effort into them than they really could. And it turns into more of a disappointment than anything else. But at the same time, you've got 25 characters that you have to write.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it does lead to some good, like having these characters together does lead to some good moments. Like the Yukiko and Yusuke quest story thing was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good.
There's a great moment when Fimsy, you, and Ren meet up. Thank you, Max.
Is he meowing?
I heard a meow.
I mean, he's sitting right next to me, so
yeah.
it would be him if you heard a meow.
But there's a good moments when like the wild cards all meet up, and like there's one time where they're talking about like something having a long nose, and they're all like nose, nose, nose.
Yeah.
There's a moment I think when you and the P4 company come into play, and they meet up with Ren and Fimc, and they introduce themselves by talking as if they are personas they have gotten, and it is literally one of the best things I have seen in a Persona game. Like, it is fantastic. Because, of course, like, all of these wild cards would be just complete weirdos. I think that's how their characters are.
Yeah.
And they would do stuff like that.
They would.
And it's just, it's fantastic. Like, I think what makes, like, some of the writing in this disappointing is that you get to see these flashes of brilliance in there, you know, scattered throughout, but then, like, it's kind of stuck in between these instances where it just becomes lazy.
Very lazy.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
The gameplay is essentially, you know, very similar to the last game. It is going around into all these different dungeons, mapping them out, finding FOEs and traps and everything, and trying to circumvent them until you find a boss. All of the dungeons are themed around different movies because you are stuck in a movie theater. So that's kind of the motif for everything. And each specific dungeon is set around a specific kind of theme, and each theme will basically kind of revolve around one of the specific game's casts until you get basically into the late game.
Yep.
So that's all happens. The only problem with these dungeons is that, like, a lot of them are just very too kind of open in a sense. Given that this game, like, the one of the titles, or one of the words in the title of the game is Labyrinth, they don't really feel like labyrinths until you get to, like, the very last dungeon.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is not something you would really want to have happen. Everything else just has, like, too much of, like, you don't feel claustrophobic or anything. You don't feel like you're in a tight and cramped space. It's just like everything's very open to you. And then once you get to that final dungeon, that's when everything kind of finally kicks in. But prior to that, it's just, you know, here's some dungeons and they're okay. The penultimate dungeon's very long for the sake of being long, which is a problem that Persona has kind of been running into lately, which is a real shame. Just in terms of just artificially inflating the game's length and all that sort of stuff by doing things like making dungeons super long for just the sake of having them be long and not to have them really have anything interesting happen during that long period of time you're running through them.
Mm-hmm.
It is a bit of a bummer on that front. Perhaps the one big thing that is very odd and peculiar that is also a very big disappointment is they didn't dub this. And this is the first Persona game brought over to, like, English-speaking regions and everything that hasn't been dubbed.
Correct.
So, like, everything before this has had precedent of being dubbed all the way back to Revelations Persona. So everything has been dubbed until this, and, like, on one hand, yeah, it sucks. It is a bummer. On the other hand, I completely understand why Atlas would not want to dub this game.
I mean, you'd have to pay so many people.
Exactly. Getting all of those casts back together, which is probably a lot harder than it is over here than it is in Japan. Paying all those people, getting them all on a schedule that would work. Like, if you're gonna dub this game, you're probably not putting it out until holidays this year.
Yeah.
And for the fact that it's a 3DS game, Atlas USA probably looked at these options and were like, look, the 3DS is a pretty dead platform. We can either put it out now or wait 6 months and get it dubbed and pay and have to spend more money to do that, or just put it out now because it's a 3DS game.
Yeah. I mean, it's really disappointing, but I get why they did it.
True. I mean, in retrospect, they did avoid some controversy with, you know, the dubbing cast and everything. So
they did
on that front, but at the same time, it is a bummer because, like we said, all the other games have had dubs.
But also, like, he's replaceable.
True. Like, there is precedent for replacement casts in Persona games. That is very much a thing. So, but yeah, it is a bummer. But like, at the same time, I completely understand why, from like a business perspective, you would not want to put forth the money and time into dubbing a 3DS game in 2019.
Yeah, no, I get it, but
So,
it still sucks.
It still is a bit of a bummer. Is there anything else we should talk about before we get into like spoilers stuff? I feel like there might be, but I just can't remember for the sake of remembering.
If there is, I can't think of it.
Soundtrack's good.
Soundtrack's very good. Soundtrack is very, very, very good.
It is one of the bright spots of this game.
Mm-hmm.
They basically get back all of the vocalists from their respective games. So you have like Yumi Kamamura from Persona 3, Mayumi Fujita from Persona 3 Portable, Shihoko Hirata from Persona 4,
Trying.
And then Lin from Persona 5 comes in, and Lotus Juice is just bouncing around.
He's just there.
He's just there. So yeah, like all of them have their own respective battle themes and everything for like which protagonist you get and everything, and you can kind of swap those on the fly and everything. And then like some of this, like the other like original soundtrack stuff and other songs that they produce within here are very good as well. So all that's good. I think kind of going back to like some of the writing being lazy is that they reuse some old jokes.
Yeah.
Like the Marie poem stuff is a thing that they reuse again, and that's like what, the third or fourth time they've done that gag.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't good the first time. It's not good the second time. It's like the fifth time. It's still not good. Please stop doing it. Just let Marie die.
Yikes.
Not literally.
Yikes.
I don't want her to actually be murdered. That'd be weird. And very not nice of me.
But like it is a gag that
they
have done before in other games and didn't necessarily need to reuse again.
And also, like, it wasn't as funny this time because, like, last time, you know, we had like Akihiko and people like that reading them, and that was way funnier.
Mm-hmm. The only good thing about these poems is that I feel like the localizer is a secret Guilty Kiss fan.
Guilty Kiss!
And snuck in some references into those poems.
Yep. That was pretty funny, actually.
Because there are some very specific like wording and stuff in some of those poems that it's just like, this is a little too on the nose to be a really good coincidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that kind of covers the general specifics of the game itself. So I think we're going to dive into some spoilers here.
Time for spoilers.
So if you're wanting to play this game or in the middle of playing this game or whatnot and don't want to have the story and everything spoiled for you, this would be the time to tune out.
Actually, one thing that I do want to say that's not really spoiler because we've seen it in the trailer, but seeing Yosuke with like dinosaur body is like the funniest thing in the entire universe.
It's very bizarre.
It's so weird. He's just like eating grass. I'm like, all right, you know what? He would. Anyway.
So yeah, if you don't want spoilers,
spoiler time.
You gotta go.
Bye-bye.
You can't stay, but you gotta go. I don't know. That's not the right wording of that, but
no, we adore you, but bye-bye.
All right. Well, let's talk about some story stuff. So we mentioned this a little bit in terms of the writing and everything, and I kind of just wanted to get this off the bat so we don't forget. But
okay.
We mentioned a specific character is better written in this game than their original game.
Facts.
And that is a character we did not like in Persona 5.
It's because he sucked.
Akechi is incredibly well written and way better. He's way more subtle. You can still see like the nuances of his character and how, like, you know, he's not who he actually says he is and everything. But it is not just like beat you over the head of how obvious it is in Persona 5. Like here, it's like, you know, like I said, it's way more subtle and like it works so much better to have him written like this than it was in vanilla Persona 5.
I agree. Like, he is so much better in this. And it's insane.
It was incredibly surprising. Like, I remember, like, I was, like, probably halfway through the game, and I texted you, I was like, so I think this is my hot take about the game, but Akechi is way better written in this game. And you're like, yeah. It's like, that was not at all the thing I was expecting to take away from this game.
No, I was not expecting that either. It was very weird that, like, there was one moment with him and Ken talking, and I was like, holy like, this is really well done.
Like, he has that moment with Ken. He has another moment with Shinji. And it's just like, where was this character? Where was this writing in the original game? Like, obviously, the Persona 5 has a checkered history with the way it was localized and everything.
Yeah.
But, like, man, if his character was written like this in the original, in Persona 5 vanilla, like, it probably would have made that story a little bit more enjoyable, and, like, especially his character just, like, way more nuanced and just more a better villain for that game than exactly what he is. So, like, I was not expecting that to be the big surprise coming out of this game, that, like, wow, they wrote Akechi really well. Like, holy
I mean, legit, that's one of the best things about this game is how well they wrote him. Like, which is not anything I ever expected to say.
No, 1000% not. Because, like, I remember going into this and thinking, like, well, of course they throw him in this because, like, a lot of people like his character and everything, so you're not going to not include him. So it was like, I was kind of bummed that he was involved, but, like, on coming out on the other end, I was like, wow, I'm so glad they put him in here because they did a fantastic job with him. Like, it is super surprising and incredible.
It was wild. It really was.
Like, if you're saying, like, here's the top 5 best things from this game, which is, to be fair, this isn't a good game.
It is not a good game.
Like, that is one of the top 5 best things about this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, and that's not good. They were like, man, look how this character could have been.
Yeah.
But this is like this side game.
Like, I'm actually, like, just thinking about it, like, right now, like, I wonder, because they're redoing Persona 5. Like, they're making a kind of a golden version of it, Persona 5 Royal. That's coming out next year for Western audiences. I wonder if Atlas USA is going to retranslate that game.
You think they will?
Well, considering how much, like, controversy they had for it, like, I know that would be a ton of work. And, like, it would be easier just to slap the original script into there and then just translate the newer stuff. But I wonder if they might actually retranslate it to, like, kind of put to bed, like, the controversy behind the localization of it originally. I'm not, like, not to say, like, that's going to fix the game entirely, but, like, you know, it would at least be, like, a Band-Aid of sorts on one part of the game that's bad. But that's just something that popped in my head. I don't know if they would actually do that. That is a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
And they would also have to redub it, so they probably won't.
No.
Yeah. But it would be interesting if they did.
But also people were like, oh my god, Persona 5 is the best thing ever. And that's even with that nonsense. So.
Yeah. But essentially, story-wise for the game, you start off with the P5 crew. They're going through mementos and everything, and then they just get sucked into this other world where they see Kamoshida. He's now a superhero and everything. They're like, WTF?
Yeah.
They jump through, like, a screen and they find themselves in a movie theater. That is where they meet the 3 new characters for this game specifically. They meet Hikari, who is this tiny. She's a tiny girl. Not really a tiny girl. She's smaller.
She's smaller and she has, like, a film reel on her head.
Yeah, but she's, like, their age, so.
Yeah.
They meet
hard
also.
to tell when they're chibi.
Yeah, that's the thing. Nagi, who she calls herself the theater's curator. She's basically taking care of Hikari. And they also meet Do, who's just like this weird shadow-looking character who hangs out in the projection room and just kind of doesn't do anything, and they're very all sketched out by him. Don't know really what to make of him.
Yeah, he's kind of weird.
So basically, they realize they're kind of all trapped there, and it has the same kind of motif as Persona Q did, where there's a door, but it has a bunch of locks on it, and basically you progress through each dungeon and take care of one of the locks on the door.
Correct.
So there's that. Eventually, they run into like the Velvet Room weirdos. They all show up. So like the twins show up. Theodore and Elizabeth show up. Margaret and Marie show up. The whole gang's all here. Theodore gets put in a popcorn costume.
He does.
Elizabeth just wears like a weird film get up and wears some 3D glasses and gets very into everything because of course she does.
It's also interesting that in this dub, like in the Japanese dub, they call him Theodore.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that.
I mean, we've never really listened to the Japanese dub of a Persona game outside of like the 3 movies, but he doesn't show up in those, so
right.
Not something we would really know.
Yeah, I was like, huh, interesting.
So yeah, they all that happens. They realize they're kind of stuck there, so they go back into the movie and try and figure things out. They realize that like it's a place where Kamoshida Man, who is the antagonist of this movie, rules the city with an iron fist. Basically, it's his law or the highway, all that sort of stuff. They end up running around throughout the dungeon and everything. This is where you run into Femc, who's just kind of there, and she's like, hey, I'm just here. I kind of got lost from my colleagues. I'll just hang out with you guys now. Okay, cool. So that happens. They realize that she's cool because she can summon personas, except she shoots herself with a gun. They're like, what the heck are you doing? What is this? Eventually you beat Kamoshida Man and everything, and you finish the first film. You pop out.
Bunny.
He becomes a bunny. It's very weird.
Yeah, it is very weird.
You pop out. Do shows up in the theater room and then just pukes out a key from his eyes.
Crying out of his eyes, and it becomes a key.
And Hikari's like, what the heck?
I mean, it's weird.
Everyone's very weirded out. The key basically unlocks one of the locks, obviously, and then a new movie opens up. The second movie is dinosaur themed. It is called Jurassic Land. Every day is great at your Jurassic Land. So it's basically Jurassic Park, all that sort of stuff. Very like jungly motif and everything. This is where you run into Yosuke with a dinosaur head or dinosaur body, and you're like, what is going on? Also,
this is chomping on some grass.
He's eating some grass, just enjoying life. Here's where you find the P4 crew. Yep. They have a really good introduction where like
they do.
The Phantom Thieves kind of like they notice something's amiss, and then here comes you just coming out to literally murder
He's gonna
Ren.
murder him.
And Ren just guards with his gun. Like, yeah, I'm gonna fight you with your sword with my gun.
Which is
really
funny
good.
because like later he was like, yeah, man, sorry, didn't really know that you were like friendly. And he's like, so why'd you pick a gun? You know, it's not real. Wouldn't have done anything.
So all those dorks are there.
Yep. Being good dorks.
Good dorks. They're all there. This dungeon basically kind of revolves around the idea of like group mentality. So like these dinosaurs all like they base all their decisions around group voting and everything. The Yosuke dinosaur gets voted out at one point, then gets joined back, and then they're like, no, we don't want the humans to help us. We can fend on our own. And then it's like big old dinosaurs come.
Rule. Yeah, they're what are they called? The carnivores?
Yeah, they come up and like, let's eat you. And like, oh no. And you
also,
have to save them.
It's hilarious because the carnivores are like super glitzy. They have like eyeshadow and makeup and like super long eyelashes. It's very weird.
Yeah. It eventually ends with you having to fight the Yosuke dinosaur, who basically turns into like a Jiraiya dinosaur. Oh god, my arm.
He does become Jiraiya.
So that all happens. And you defeat another dungeon. Another movie dungeon. I'm gonna take a pill.
They're like, oh hey, you can join our group again, Mr. Yosuke dinosaur.
We have learned the error of our ways with group mentality. So Do spits out another key again. That's 2 locks down. The next dungeon is sci-fi themed. It is called Aegis.
I wonder what's gonna happen here.
Basically, this whole thing is like it's this huge utopia where robots rule, humans are gone, and the robots are all controlled by a mastermind who basically instructs them to do everything this way. One robot sees a flower, picks it up, and changes into what looks like Aegis essentially. And kind of everyone sees this robot as like a defect and everything. Fempsy is like, I know this. I know Aegis. That's one of my comrades. And they're like, oh, cool. We're going to be able to help you find your comrades. So they go in, and obviously it's very, robot-y theme, sci-fi, everything.
I guess Robot becomes Ribbon at one point.
Yes, Ribbon is a very good character.
Ribbon is one of the better parts of
Reban.
this. Reban.
You eventually run into some of C's minus Makoto and Aegis. They're like, yeah, they're gone. Fempsy is very excited to see her teammates.
Who don't know her. That's the big twist, is that the C's that you roll up are the male protagonists of characters, not Fempsy's. And like they're like, oh, we don't really know who you are. And she's like, oh, okay. It's so heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. It's actually like one of the better written parts of this game, in them dealing with like the fact that she knows them, but they don't know her, and like how the group is dealing with it in terms of like, she's just trying to like smile and bear it, and like she knows the people, but she's trying not to be weird about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we kind of feel like butts, and that like she knows us, but we don't know her, and she's trying really hard to put on a brave face, and like it's actually like, it made me sad because the 3 crew so much, and I love her so much. So I was like, oh, my girl's hurting. But yeah, it was good. But yeah, this is where we run into that.
There's some good parts as well. Like eventually, like they come to realize that like it's the way like their relationship is with her is very familiar, even though they don't really know her. It's like, but mostly it's just because she reminds them of male protagonists and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the arc they all go through is very good, and I think it shows a lot of different layers to Fempsy's character as well, because normally she is like the more bright and cheerful protagonist of the 3, I guess you could say, deuteragonists.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's probably one of the better written parts of this game.
Mm-hmm.
with how they deal with that. Eventually, you run into Aegis and Makoto, which if you want to have some fun in this game, which of course, like the original game, this game has character limits on the character names, so you really cannot name the characters who they actually are, like their canon names. So that's a bummer. Except for the three protagonists, you can name them both the same name.
Yeah, that was messy.
So you have 3 different characters named Makoto, and then you never know who's actually getting talked about. It's very good. It's a really fun way to play the game.
I only had 2 characters in Makoto.
Well, you're missing out.
Probably.
I remember doing that. I think I did a FMC run through on YouTube and just named her the P3 movie name. I was like, it would work. Makoto works for both boys and girls, so why not do that? Totally fits. So yeah, eventually you run into them, and then you fight the overseer, who it looks like Ikutsuki, because of course, Ribbon gets Orgia mode,
this boss,
which is real
sucked.
fun. A lot of the bosses in this game sucked.
Yeah, a lot of the bosses sucked so bad.
A lot of the bosses in this game suck.
Made me really mad.
A lot of the bosses are basically like we talked about. One of the problems of this game is of long for the sake of being long, and that is very emblematic of the bosses themselves, where a lot of them will have like very like either just a lot of health, story events you have to basically fight through until you get to. They'll just automatically heal themselves for no apparent reason whatsoever, other than just story. Because plot
is awful.
Yeah, a lot. There are long boss fights, and they do not need to be long boss fights.
Yes, I agree. Even on like safety mode.
They are long boss fights, and they do not need to be long boss fights.
Yeah, it was bad.
But yeah, you eventually fight the boss here and do that. Save everyone, get out, and you get a third key and all that. And then Hikari goes missing.
Yep.
And
you get like a weird trailer.
Mm-hmm. Where the movie title is like scratched out, so you don't know what the title of the movie is or anything, but the motif of the movie and everything is very like kind of like happy and colorful. So it kind of is counteracting to like what you've seen with like the title being scratched out and everything and Hikari going missing. So you're just like, what is going on here? Eventually you find out that like the movie is about Hikari and her life and everything and like what has happened to her to like kind of force her actual self to kind of become very like jaded and closed to everyone else and just like not wanting to deal with anyone, including like people she's very close to. So you go through a lot of like different like scenarios where it turns into a musical, which is interesting.
Yep.
that go through her life story and everything. This dungeon is again long for the sake of being long. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's a lot of going up like up a level, down a level, 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 and so on and so forth. It's not fun. But eventually you make your way to the boss of like one of the bosses or the boss of this. What is the actual boss of this level? Is it Doe or is Doe like
Doe.
Okay. Doe becomes the boss of this level, who turns out to be Hikari's dad.
Yep.
So that turns very interesting. And basically Hikari just like has to learn to accept like who she is, her background and everything, and like what she actually like, what she wants to do with her life through the power of friendship.
Yay!
So you basically you eventually finish that up and everything. You get the fourth lock undone and everything, and you're thinking, okay, well that's it. We just get to leave now, right?
Of course.
Wink, wink. Turns out
there's another big bad.
The big bad after all. It was Nagi.
Yay! Who could have seen that coming?
That was that was one of those where it's like halfway through, it's like she's gonna end up being like the actual bad guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Turns out it is. She's like this, like she basically keeps people in these theaters because like they don't want to go out or anything, and they are just kind of stuck in their lives and everything. So she thinks that, like, that's just it's another classic Persona take of, here is this like supernatural character who thinks this is what humanity wants, so we are going to that's how it's going to be. Which is in essence another trope that's basically kind of been beaten to the pulp by this point in terms of Persona stories. But that's how it is. And she basically gives you the option, like, hey, you can go if you want. All these people are going to stay here, but you guys are free to go. Like, I don't really care if you want to stay or not. You are free to go. If you want to go ahead. And basically the groups all come together and they're like, nah, we gotta save all these people. And Hikari basically wants that as well. So they decide to stay and everything and try to figure out a way to free everyone. Which involves like getting all of the films from the previous dungeons and everything. And well, not, you don't have to go back to the dungeons or anything, but you just basically grab all the movies essentially, quote unquote.
The movies.
And project those to the other theaters to try and make sure that people can actually like see that there is a different way and everything. And then you eventually fight Nagi. Which brings forth perhaps the most interesting thing about this game. In that, you know, it's another boss fight that's very long and arduous, and does the final the usual Persona final, or I guess usual in terms of P3 onwards, of the final boss part where all of your party members will get taken away one by one.
Yeah. Until
there is one person left, and usually that one person is the protagonist of the game.
That's not the truth or the case here.
Well,
I mean, she technically...
In my argument, it would be the case here, because you learned that the true protagonist of this game is Hikari.
Right. I was thinking more in the sense of, like, player protagonist, but, like, the actual protagonist of this game is definitely Hikari.
She is the one who gets the big rises up, fights against the boss when no one else is around her to help, and basically is able to get everyone back.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, like I kind of going into this fight, I was kind of starting to get that vibe, but I wasn't expecting her to get that sort of treatment from this fight. Like, because of course, like usually when this happens, it is the protagonist who comes up with a big attack that they haven't had yet, and that's how they defeat the boss and get everyone back. But this is the opposite. It's a non-player character, or non-playable character, I should say, who ends up getting this and in turn becomes a playable character, and in turn again shows that she's basically the true protagonist of this video game.
Also, holy this boss sucks, because like she can reverse and fast forward time, and like there are a few times, like there's this one ability you can get for the Navis that they can heal your SP.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, here, have a full SP heal. And I'm like, yay, this is great. I needed that. And the boss reversed time and took it away. And I'm like, you son of a...
I don't think I ever had it happen like that. Like, it would do the reverse and forward time things, but I don't think it ever, like, affected me.
Oh, so
it was just
mad.
like, okay, you did some more time stuff. I'll just keep fighting, I guess.
I legit had to put it down for a minute and
you
walk
were
away.
Yeah, you were getting mad.
I was so mad by the time at what point do you think I was just done with this game, that I was just powering through it? It had to have been at least the Hikari dungeon.
I was gonna say like maybe after the second dungeon.
I know for a fact it was the final boss of the Aegis movie.
Yeah, so like
nope.
I mean, I think even before then you were kind of just done.
Yeah.
And playing just for the sake of playing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were done pretty early on. But yeah.
Man, getting my entire SP heal just taken away from me, I was like, I put it down. I went, I made dinner. I like had to step away from it for an hour. I came back and I was like, okay, you're going down. Just all there is to it. Like, you are going down. You took my SP. You are going to die. But yeah, so that is one interesting aspect, though, is that Hikari is the protagonist and has to save the day.
I think mostly I like it, just the idea of like them subverting the idea of a Persona user has to be the one to save the day when she is clearly not.
Yeah.
Even though she does have like some sort of abilities, but at the same time it's just like, hey, she's just this really determined person who wants to help her friends, and she's able to do that. It's cool. But eventually you defeat the boss and are able to free everyone.
Eventually.
Everything kind of like starts to crumble around you, and you head back to Hikari's theater to say goodbye to everyone. Everyone goes their separate ways and everything, one by one. And then basically kind of like the epilogue is seeing all the cast basically back in their original places and seeing what they're up to post what happened there. Of course, they don't remember anything that happened because that's just the way this game works, or these games work, I should say now.
Mm-hmm.
The P4 crew hangs out at Yu's place because Nanako shows up, and that's the only time she shows up in the game.
I was so happy to see Nanako in her little chibi form.
She's good. And they all start to hang out, and they talk about there's a movie on TV that they should all watch. The P3 crew gets together, and they all get to hang out downstairs. I guess I say the male P3 crew. They all hang out downstairs, and they watch a movie that they rented. Mm-hmm. Femc gets to reunite with her crew, and she's very happy that because she feels like she hasn't seen them in a while. And they're all like, "What are you talking about, you weirdo?
You were here just now. You're fine.
We haven't seen you like that long ago. It's fine." But she gets to be reunited with her C's crew, and they basically kind of do the same thing that the other P3 crew does. And the P5 crew hangs out in Ren's loft area essentially, and they talk about going to like a film screening.
Yep.
They go to this film screening just because I think it's Ryuji who brings it up and is like wanting to go. And they all just go to this thing, and basically, at the end of the game, one of the things Hikari talks about is going out and making a movie that she wants to make.
Yes.
And when they go to that theater or that film screening, you see someone walk on stage and Ren react to him, and you briefly get to see, oh, it's Hikari.
Yep.
She's the one on stage presenting her film.
She's the director.
Which kind of brings in some weird time paradox things of like, how does the P3 crew have this film in 2009?
Yep. I was also wondering that.
So that happens, but like I think it's a fun, interesting way to end the game and kind of have like in a way kind of try and break the idea that it's non-canon by having Ren kind of at least like recognize who it is.
Yeah.
In terms of knowing who Hikari is. Yeah, that's basically how the game ends. You get some weird shots of you doing weird things in the credits.
Dude, I saved every single one of those because they were awesome. Like
he is so weird, and I love him for it.
What a nerd. So also, I will say, there are some positives at the end. Like, one is the fact that Yu is like a nerd posing. In every single shot he's in, he's just like ridiculous. There is the part at the end where like Makoto and Femsi like shake hands and like, do you think we'll ever like meet each other? And like it was cute. Also, and I mentioned this on Twitter, my shipping heart was very, very happy a few times.
Yeah.
Because they definitely put some nice Aki Femsi moments in there. I was like, they may have butchered his character, but at least he cares about the right girl.
It's true.
Like I saved this one picture that she's like shocked standing there, but Shinji is saying that like Akihiko wouldn't shut up about finding her. I was like, he loves her. And then there's another one where I saved it, and she says, well then, would you like to watch one with me, Akihiko senpai? I know the perfect romance movie. Yeah. Save some other ones too. Yeah, here we go. I'm sure the other me is only doing it because he cares about you. It's like, oh, wow! I saved so many pictures from this. I'm surprised.
I did too. But it's mostly because I think we were just sending goofs to each other.
Like go to town on that fluff.
Yep.
That one was really good.
Or Femsi dressed up as a cop.
Yeah.
Or Mothman. The Velvet style artisanal hot dog. How could I ever forget Yukiko's drawings?
The drawings are fantastic. So good. I have Junpei saying, oh man, what if that me is a totally studly model and a hit with all the ladies around the world?
I have you talking about catching the legendary Sea Guardian.
Yep. I have Yosuke saying that Yukiko is a bundle of surprises. Yeah, go to town on that fluff is one of my favorites. Koromaru just needs pets.
Caroline saying guilty kiss.
Yep. Yeah, most of mine's just shipping stuff.
Oh man, I completely forgot when Yukiko turns into Junpei's apprentice and Junpei's Believe It or Don't.
Yep, that happened.
That's really good.
That happened.
Okay, so like there's parts of this game that are bad, but like there are parts of this game that are pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing that we've kind of like emphasized here is that there are moments where it's really good, but like overall the game is bad.
Elizabeth says you bet your sweet Bippy again.
Just bet you're a sweet Bippy.
Oh, by the way, yeah, this reminds me as well. There's a lot of weird Dragon Ball references in this game.
There's a lot of Dragon Ball references, and I'm not sure why.
Someone on the localization team thought Futaba would be way into Dragon Ball, and like, okay, sure. So that definitely happens. Like, she definitely mentions like having to find balls and get a wish. She mentions training in the hyperbolic time chamber. I think there's something else she mentions as well, and just like, oh, she makes I think an over 9,000 reference.
She does.
Just it's
Yep, it's a lot.
Your favorite series, clearly.
Yeah,
They referenced Hifumi at one point, which made me happy.
they did.
Which blessed.
Um,
Blessed.
I have a picture that I saved of the end credits that has Femc holding hands and skipping with Teddy and Shinji, while you just poses dramatically in the back.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yep. It's pretty wonderful. Oh man, that's what a good picture that is. Akihiko and Shinji having a popcorn eating contest.
Weirdos.
Yeah, that was one thing that like they had one of the scenes that showed up like when you were in the waiting room of like Akihiko and Shinji and Yusuke like having popcorn eating contest, and I'm like, all right, I guess, sure.
Everyone really loved that popcorn.
Everybody loved that popcorn, but legit, like there are good moments to this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just like hated playing it.
It's like if you can get around the gameplay, which kind of has some definite rough edges, specifically with length and bosses and all that sort of stuff, and also I think just I don't think the Etrian Odyssey style really fits again when it's not as unique as it was the first time around.
Yeah.
So there's that, and also just the rough writing around the edges as well. I'm trying not to sneeze.
Don't
it's
sneeze.
very difficult.
Bless you. Good job.
But yeah, the rough writing and everything. But if you can maneuver around that, there are good moments that you can find within this game. However, I don't think this is a game you would necessarily recommend to someone who hasn't played all three of those games. It'd be very difficult to jump in with all of these characters involved. Nor is it a game that you could just tell someone, hey, if you want to get a good look at the Persona series, play this. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, don't do that.
That would be a terrible idea. At the same time, like I know we are kind of ragging on it a bit. I don't think this is the worst spin-off game.
I'm trying to think of what I would consider the worst spin-off game. It's at the bottom.
The 5 dancing game is the worst spin-off game.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
It's like I think the bottom like spin-off games for me would be like P5 dancing would be the bottom. And then maybe either probably this and then Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
Yeah, I could see that. I would agree with you.
Which is a game that has really good gameplay, but a bad story.
Yeah, it's kind of a disaster.
This doesn't have great gameplay. I think it's not terrible. It's fine. But there is a lot of stuff you just have to kind of maneuver around to get to the good of it.
Yeah.
So like it could go either way on that. But yeah, that is Persona Q2 is just it's a weird game. If like we said, there's some fun to be had, but at the same time, I can think at the end of the day, you kind of have to look at it and think like, was this game really necessary in 2018, 2019? And that is definitely a debatable point, specifically for a 3DS game. Like I don't necessarily know if we really needed this. It doesn't, considering especially it's a non-canon game. How much does it add to the overall series as a whole, and all of that? It's an interesting question.
Also, I just want to say that it's really disappointing that this is where Femc comes back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we've had some things with Makoto in it since 3's release. We've had really nothing with her in it since P3P. And then, like, she comes back and it's this, and I'm like, oof.
Which, I mean, she's great in. She is great in this game, but, like, at the same time...
She's the best character in this game.
You would hope that eventually they would put her in something that's better.
They could have
Like maybe if they
dancing game.
They could have. Like maybe if they actually do eventually remake 3, they go full forth with it and allow you to play as both characters.
That'd be great.
It would be, but also it's Atlas.
Yeah, they are butts.
So yeah.
Bimsy deserves better.
She does. Oh, I guess one thing we haven't really talked about that was very weird about this game was that Amazon leaked it.
Oh. I had it like 3 weeks before it came out?
Yeah, like super early. They just sent out like the special collector's edition just a few weeks before the game was supposed to come out.
Yeah, like I got the shipment notification. I'm like, that can't be right. That can't be right. And then I talked to you and you're like, yeah, it doesn't come out until like June. And I'm like, what? Really? And then it came. I'm like, yep, okay. I guess I just have this 2.5 weeks early. Which I did end up getting the special edition. Which appealed to me in a sense that like I got pins, which is nice, and I love pins. Like
and Koro.
Which I will say that the quality of Koro is not that great. Like horrible, and I love him, and I will buy any plushie of him. But like this plushie is not really well constructed.
It is there is another one out there that they've made that's probably better, I would assume.
I have the one from
Fangamer?
Yes. And that one's really, really great. Like it is a super great plushie. This one kind of feels like really cheap and like has some like sewing errors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a bummer.
That's clearly why they had to ship it out early. Like, we gotta get this out of here.
But I did get the pins, and and anybody who knows me knows that I love buttons.
You do.
Although one of them just doesn't exist anymore.
Wasn't it like one of the weird things about the limited edition as well is that they didn't put a soundtrack in it?
No soundtrack. It comes
Which
with
again,
an art book. Yeah, the soundtrack's one of the best parts of this game.
And specifically, like all of the special editions they've done prior to this have had some form of soundtrack, either like the full soundtrack or a soundtrack sampler.
Like sampler, yeah. It had nothing.
Which is, like you said, is a disappointment because like the soundtrack is very good in this game.
It's really good. But
like even just like a sampler of like the battle themes and the opening and ending themes, like that would have been a-okay.
Like that's what they did with Q. They had like some battle themes and stuff in it.
They did it with all the spin-offs, I believe. Like they did that with Arena. I don't know if they did that with Ultimax. I don't remember. I got a code for that game, so I don't know. Like you said, they did that with Q. They did that with P4 Dan, I think. Yeah, P4 Dan came with like the full soundtrack. I don't know about the dancing games over here. I know in Japan they put out the full soundtrack, but that's because Japan's like they will go full bore with soundtracks. P5 had something. I feel like I'm missing something else. But regardless, like the idea that hey, the collector's edition is going to have a soundtrack of some sorts has kind of been a prevailing thing before this, and then nope.
Instead, we got a pack of playing cards.
It made more sense when they were giving out tarot cards.
Yeah, the playing cards is very weird. I don't know what I would ever do with them. Especially
because like there's no playing card motif in the game.
No.
I mean, cool. You have a set of Persona playing cards. I guess that's all right. But like,
I mean, like the art's great on them, but like,
not necessarily something you would associate with the game or put into a collector's edition. You would think.
I'd rather have a soundtrack.
Right.
Like I said, the art's neat on some of them, and I sent you a lot of pictures from it. But like. Mm-hmm. I will literally never take that out of the box.
We're not going to play poker with the Persona cards.
Oh my god, please don't make me play poker again. If we play poker again, you'll have to explain it because I still don't remember how to play poker.
We're going to play poker with the Persona cards, and I will explain poker to you.
I will never learn how to play poker. Like, I keep trying whenever you teach me, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Jared, help me.
Doesn't help that there's different kinds of poker, so it just becomes even more confusing.
There are multiple types of poker?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You didn't know that?
No.
Like 5-card stud, Texas Hold'em, those are two completely different types of poker.
What does that even mean?
We don't have time to delve into the different types of poker in this podcast, unfortunately.
Anyway, it came with playing cards instead of a soundtrack, and that was really disappointing.
Yes.
But also, I got it 2.5 weeks early.
You did. It was the weird thing of like all the people who bought the collector's edition had it early, and also reviewers had it early.
Yeah. It was very odd.
And reviewers had it way later than people who got it sent early.
Yeah, because you got it like a week after I did or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. I tried to like not play it way ahead of you.
But I was also reviewing Trails of Cold Steel 2 at the time, so...
Oh, I was still mad at you about that. Because the whole time you were playing that, you're like, I'm playing this. And I was like, can we trade? I'd rather play that.
And then I was like, oh, I also got this.
I would much rather play Trails of Cold Steel 2 again. And I say that as somebody who just finished playing it.
You did.
What a good game.
So yeah, that's Persona Q2.
Yeah, it exists.
Mm-hmm. Good soundtrack, good character moments scattered in between bad character moments.
Mm-hmm.
Akechi's really well written.
Yeah.
Hikari, the true protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Ken has some good moments with Akechi.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty legit.
And then there's some bad dungeons and bad bosses.
Very, very bad bosses.
So if we were giving a rating of this, I would give it a thumbs in the middle.
Thumbs in the middle?
Yeah. There's some good, there's some bad. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I probably won't ever play it again.
Yeah, same. But also, like, am I ever probably going to boot up my 3DS again?
Yeah.
Probably not. Bless you.
I just scared Maxwell off.
Oh, no.
It was... I'm glad that I played it for some of the moments in it, but at the same time,
same.
like, I will never play it again.
Yeah. So there you go. Persona Q2, New Cinema Labyrinth.
Yay, we got through it.
It's a video game.
It is indeed a video game.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you would like more from us, go to seasonlamycheckup.com or sac.cool. It's where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Season Lamy Checkup and Jared Now Watch. I had to remember which podcast I had to talk there. We've been doing a lot of Jared Now Watch recordings recently, so that's why I would have to think like that. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. And you can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. That's where we do the Twitter. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Next week, this is the first week we have gone off of our schedule because we did our month schedule, and now it's kind of like
Chaos.
So there's some things we potentially could talk about. You have something that you're going to play eventually, and we'll probably talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
I'd assume. We'll probably talk about some things that I am playing currently, and then we'll be playing in later this week, and I've already played by the time this goes up. Probably talk about those at some point. When? Who knows? So something will happen next week.
I don't actually know what you're talking about right now, but we'll talk about it when we end.
There you go. So tune in next week when, I don't know, we just...
Do the thing.
We do the thing, or we just talk about Love Live Sunshine again.
Hey.